Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to the ShoeMoney Show, Skills to Pay the Bills. I'm your host, Jeremy Shoemaker. And I know a lot of people don't join us live, but for those that do, every month we give away a set of Beats Studio wireless headphones. They're the official headphones of the ShoeMoney Show. And I'm just actually configuring mine because they're awesome. And so, we at the show, we don't take a lot of sponsors, but the ones we do take.
Hey, Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you there?
Well, I'm trying to see. Let's see if this will work.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can't see you. But I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hold on. Let me see if I can get the other part working. I may not be able to get it working in time.
Yeah, we're actually live.
Perfect.
So go ahead. No worries. So I was just going off of the actual sponsors for the show, actually. So I was talking about how Leeds Market's an awesome sponsor of the show. We do we've done some stuff with them in the past. I've been in the short-term loan / payday loan space for a while, and I asked Morgan, the CEO of the company, to come on today. Also, like I said, we were Beats by Dre. Thanks for sponsoring the show. Beats are the best headphones ever, and we love them here. And we also give away a set every month for anyone who has asked a question that we answered during the live show, which nobody ever shows up for because we're on iTunes and a million other places. But yeah, but it's cool because it allows me to edit out stuff. So.
Well, that's perfect, and thanks for having me, Jeremy. I really appreciate that. As always, it's great to be on the show, and it's great to be working with you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And our last sponsor is the Hoth, which is an SEO company, and they're really awesome. I do consulting with them. Show. So with that, Morgan, thanks for coming on, and I really appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy guy. For those just joining us, I always have our guests just do a little brief bio, and the show really doesn't have any particular format. A lot of times people are always like, "Hey, what can I get a list of questions?" And I'm like, it's just one of those where it goes where it goes. So you can feel free to cuss if you want or whatever. It's wide open, and there's actually no time frame either. So if you got a call, you got to go, whatever, we can just kick it in. I just really appreciate you having you on the show.
Oh, and I really appreciate that. And more than anything, I just wanted to say excited to chat about everything.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, just give us a little bit about your background.
Of course. So I went to Pepperdine, finished in 2010. I got with business, and afterwards, interestingly enough, actually moved to China, Shanghai, where I started working for an internet retargeting company very briefly. Some of my family's health issues required me to move back. I wound up moving back soon thereafter, basically landed and started working for an internet marketing firm pretty much immediately. I worked at that firm for about 4 or 5 years, rose from an account manager who was basically, nothing but a grunt salesman to VP of the company, and was really running many aspects of the company for many years. And then when that company sort of had played out, I wound up taking the CEO position here at Leeds Market about 2 years ago. And, since then we've had fantastic growth. We grew 300%, and we were not a small company from the first year I got here. And we're continuing to do another 30 to 40% growth year over year from that 300% growth. So, our growth has been fantastic, and it's been very exciting to be a part of and to be leading the team here.
That's awesome. And I mean, in the space that you're in, do you attribute that growth to anything in particular?
Well, what I'll say on that aspect, which is when I chose to come here was because I saw the technology allowed the springboarding of the company's success to really occur. We have a wonderful team here, and what it really took was just some knowledge that I had gained before to come in and sort of kickstart it like a powder keg, and that's effectively what happened. We moved several affiliates over, and we had most of the buyers, and I had added a few more on that side, and that was really what allowed us to kind of go further. And then on top of that, we adjusted how we handled data. We adjusted pretty much everything from top to bottom in the company, and so it allowed us to really hit the next level, not just in terms of compliance and in terms of profitability, but also in terms of how we deal with our customers. We wound up having very, very satisfied customers on both sides of the equation, both buying and selling, and that was a great thing to be able to say as well.
Yeah, and I know I've heard a lot of, especially, we've worked together for several months now, and I originally did a write-up about your company, and I've heard like it seems at least once a week somebody's like, hey, thanks for introducing me. I've been in the space a while, and I hadn't, and it's just like, it's amazing to me how affiliates become so complacent, and they just use like one affiliate network. They've got something working, and they're just like, oh, I'm good. And then all of a sudden they find something like that out, and they go to LeadsMart, and they're getting, a better payout terms, and stuff like that. How, like, when a lot of our people are newer to the space, we reach a lot of veteran affiliates, but, mostly you're going to have that 98%, and then you're going to have the 2% that do very, very well. But for those 98% who want to get into this industry and promote it, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd say, we're a great place to start simply because we're able to provide templates, we're able to provide forms, we're able to provide technical options from basically novices all the way up to, large, advanced professional companies. Anyway, across the board, we have the tech options that allow them to get into the space. I would also say, though, that, this is the space that definitely requires some looking into. I want to make sure that anyone comes in, does their research, looks at the keywords. I'd say good Google Keywords tool, until July 14th at least, is a great example of that. But aside from that, it's really important to make sure you understand the product that you're marketing and offering. I see so often, almost regardless of the product, whether it's insurance, whether it's short-term loans, whether it's auto loans, anything under the sun, mortgages, where I'll see people who advertise without, quite frankly, understanding what they're advertising and the nuances of the product. And I think, something where even myself, I'll help any affiliate on it, is teaching them what they're advertising is vital, because that's what will really, in the long run, give you a big edge.
Yeah, and if I'm like distracted writing stuff down, I take a lot of notes during shows on items to follow up on, because I think one of the things you guys do that's truly remarkable is that you really do have the kind of the done for you templates of what is proven success and the keywords and stuff like that, and it definitely makes that barrier to entry for those just getting started that much smaller when it's like, here's what's successful in a box, and you can start here, and here's, and you've got other resources available to them.
Well, and it's not just that too. It's also the ability to adjust that is so important. So, some people I've seen that they keep everything basically locked and they don't allow anyone else to adjust it. But as you know, so many of the search providers will, like Bing, Google, Yahoo, they'll actually ding you for that. So, the ability to be able to adjust the code as you see fit to make it your own is also very important.
Right. So it's more like the look and feel. Here's the general look and feel. Yeah, don't duplicate these exactly, because then you're going to have similar content issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. One thing I have to say about your industry is, in the short-term loan space can be referred to payday loan space. I've done ringtone stuff. I've sold weight loss stuff. I've sold a lot of stuff, and some of these industries are looked on less favorable. Like, we've done work we've got mutual friends at other companies that, that we've done work for as well. And, at first I don't really judge anyone or anything, but the space, it was so interesting to me how much I found out about it. And, just in the payday loan space by itself, and all the success stories from people who have gotten loans.
Yeah.
And, like anything else out there, yeah, there's a sad story of someone who took on more than they could chew, but that guy's also got a bazillion other issues. But for every one of those, I mean, there was one girl in particular I remember who was local here to me. She's an African-American single mom who couldn't even afford to file bankruptcy. Like, she couldn't even afford the $500 or whatever filing fee it was to file for bankruptcy. And so, I mean, literally, so she's just behind. And without a payday loan, that would not have happened for her. So there's a lot of like stories like that. And I was like, whoa. And then I met with her and I talked with her and actually like was like, wow, this company you should be the poster child, because this is an incredible story, and people do have some of a negative connotation about it, but it's like, I think that there is a lot of good, in the industry. And so for those out there, a lot of the impression right away is, but actually for the consumers, I mean, is there anything in affiliate marketing as highly regulated as that industry?
Well, I mean, I think you could look at the mortgage space, for example, as others that have high regulations, and obviously a lot of that came after the financial crisis. So, it seems that just in general, obviously the regulators have to react on sort of a backtracked standpoint. But one of the things I would say, just to address your previous point, is that it's a product that has an enormous amount of consumer demand. And I think just in general, one of the things that we see is that this is a situation where effectively, instead of addressing, obviously the CFPB rules just came out. And to me, what I find sort of most striking about it is, if you really think about it, payday loans are a symptom, right? They're a symptom of the way the economy and the way things are structured now, so that it requires people to look. What was the latest census study? Almost half of Americans are a family of four that don't have $500 in case of emergency. And then when you say something like that, and you go, "Why does this product exist?" To me, it's self-explanatory. And we're not actually addressing the fact that, hey, half of Americans only have $500 in their bank account. What can we do to improve that? The improvement of that is almost, we don't know how to deal with that, so let's ignore that entirely. So that's always the way I've looked at it. And that's actually the real question that I think, instead of trying to focus on regulating the products, like you were mentioning, those tight rules and scrutiny on it, I think we should, I'm not saying ignore regulation, but we should also focus on how we could potentially improve those consumer situations in order to make sure that occurs.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. And the one of the questions we can kind of jump into some fan questions, or guest questions. Should make a little jingle for that. But basically one of the ones we got is, it's one that we get a lot, and it's, is the opportunity there for a new person to come in and have success, as years before in the specific vertical?
So I absolutely think so. And I'm one of those people that also says that at the end of the day, what regulation does down the line is provide you clarification. So what I mean by that is that just because things are currently, for example, you have the threat of looming regulation, doesn't mean that it's a bad space to get into. I'll use debt as an example. Debt was effectively destroyed, that industry, by regulation a few years ago. And now you're seeing it really start to come back again. And part of the reason that that's the case is simply because there's still a need for the product. So as we mentioned earlier, it's not like all of a sudden, half of America that has very little in their bank account isn't going to have emergency fund needs tomorrow or 2 years from now. So I've been a firm believer that because the demand is there, it's about us as companies to best figure out how to maximize that demand as well.
Yeah, and so I agree with that too. And I always get that question about, is the opportunity still there? And when I've jumped into a lot of verticals at various times, and I found success in those verticals without knowing anything about it. And it was basically, I looked at who was promoting what, and I pretty much ripped off their page. I'm just going to be honest. And 9 times out of 10, it would work for me. It was a matter of dialing in the right, paying for traffic, but it was pretty close. And then I would make, changes that just going off the cuff, because one thing is that innovation sucks, right? And so a lot of times these guys, they do what's doing, like you guys give out a template that's successful for people, and to kind of work off of that. And I always tell people, they're like, what do you think I should do with this? And I'm like, well, what's working for others out there? Because that's a great place to start. And now if you jump the fence on that, when I had the same thing happen to me on the other side, in the ringtone industry, I was killing it. Everyone was replicating my stuff, like just constantly. And so I had to do, better job with keywords and everything like that, because my site was the same site everyone else was doing, because they would all steal my designs and everything like that. And that's just the way it goes. So yeah. The opportunity, I mean, there's more people getting online, and the crazy thing is there's been more self-made millionaires. I was just looking at this stat up the other day, and there's been more self-made millionaires because of having their own websites was basically the stat, but a lot of it was affiliate marketing and blogging. And it was like not only self-made millionaires, but it was like than any other industry combined.
So, and it makes sense if you really think about it, because look, the affiliate industry is unique in the sense of twofold. So one, you brought up, why do people copy sites all the time? And one of the why do people copy sites all the time, it's because they've usually been tested to show that they work, right? If you're sitting at the top of Google, for example, buying this traffic, you should be testing colors on pages, the size of the buttons that are your calls to action. You should be testing whether a round orange button or a square red button is having a different effect. But the reason I bring all that up is because if you have the ability to look at something with an analytical eye, it's one of the few industries where I believe the barrier to entry, just in affiliate marketing in general, is relatively low. And the chance for success is, quite frankly, pretty high. So, what I would say really on that as well is that if you look at it, I see actually, what's funny is as we talk about this, I look at some traditional industries. For example, my uncle is in book publishing. And when I look at how even the largest publishers deal with Amazon, they deal with the online space, I'm blown away at their lack of sophistication. And these are industries which, quite frankly, have a far larger budget than we do in some cases, and yet they're still behaving like old school industries. And that shows you where there is opportunity for market disruption and therefore opportunity to make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up Amazon and books in particular. Here in Nebraska, we have a company called the Nebraska Book Company, and NBC, as they're referred to around here. They are the biggest buyers and sellers on all of Amazon, and all they do, I mean, they're so big that they have like 4 or 5 Amazon employees in their office. And all they do, it's so simple. It's very, very simple. They buy books when the school session concludes, and then they sell them when it starts. And that's all they do. That's it. It's the simplest thing, and that's just a simple arbitrage play. And they now have grown. I mean, it started with, I know a lot about it because my friend has the patent for it. If you search up his name is Nate Rempe. You'll see him here in Lincoln, Nebraska. He's a good friend of mine. And he wrote the patent for this about it's been almost 20 years ago. And wrote the patent on this of programmatically buying, selling, blah, blah, blah. And Amazon has tried to scoop it out from him for a long time. There's been legal issues with it. And anyway, but it's crazy that, I mean, people always talk to me about opportunity, and it's the same thing. I mean, everything boils down to there's a marketplace. There's always an imbalance in a marketplace. And affiliate marketers are like human arbitrage.
Completely.
Right? I mean, just they are the ultimate middleman. And they are arbitrage by definition is the the profit from a market imbalance. And that's, I don't know how to define an affiliate better. Well, a successful affiliate better, because it's profit. But I mean, there's obviously risks and not, because you're risking your time and most cases not money when people are getting started. But I, as an affiliate for companies, will risk a lot of my own money to make companies more money, but the reward is so high.
Well, and that's a great point. And I mean, when we talk about publishers, for example, I have a story of a publisher who, when I started out, this was one of my largest and greatest partners for about 8 years now. And when I started out, I remember I was just a lowly salesperson. I emailed this guy literally every day for 6 months. Every single day, emailed, hey, how are we going to work together? How are we going to work together? And I remember one day at the end of 6 months, he finally emailed me and said, fine, stop. Like, okay, I had a problem with one of my other vendors, but now we have the opportunity. I'm going to test you, and we're going to get it going. And the story, I remember sitting down and talking with him about it, because he had spun up AdWords. And the reason I bring it up is he said, I wound up spending $60,000 on PPC, pay-per-click, through Google my first week. I lost every penny. He goes, but at the end of the week, he understood why he was losing money and how to fix it. The week after, with his improved knowledge, he made $150,000. And then obviously has made exponential wealth since then. But again, the reason I bring that up is because, in the affiliate marketing space, it's to a degree, it's trial by fire, right? Because especially on the higher quality traffic sources, you have to pay for all of that. And you therefore learn about conversions, you learn about what your client base really is. And when you go through that kind of trial by fire, I actually think when you have money on the line, it's a better way. I mean, within reason, obviously, you don't want to mortgage your home or anything, but
right.
It really incentivizes you to try and kick things into high gear, because it's one thing if you're like, oh, I made a blog, nothing's happening, oh, I give up. I think it's important to focus on persistence there too.
Yeah, and I mean, affiliate marketing single-handedly, and I had this argument with someone the other day, made Amazon. I mean, it totally made Amazon. Everyone and their mom. Amazon has been so strong on developers for so long that they made it so simple with their APIs. You could have your own Amazon store inside of your own website in seconds, and you could design it all yourself and all this stuff. And so, I mean, this would have been like 15 years ago on Digital Point forums back in the day, where everyone had an Amazon store, and Amazon truly was built. That entire company was built by affiliates. And of course, now with the new affiliate laws and all that stuff. But one thing you touched on that I really like a lot is pay-per-click. Like, once you get keywords dialed in and sources of traffic dialed in, you have a real business. And
100%.
Unlike SEO, where, I mean, I know you've got a bunch of affiliates that have SEO traffic, right? And
of course.
I've known a lot of people that have SEO, but it's always a house of cards. And so that's the problem you run into. Is I've had incredible sites rank that were incredible value to people, great backlinks in various verticals, ranked. I mean, my ringtone site ranked #1 for ringtones for 2 years, and then one day, zap, and that's what happens. And so, and the other thing that made me think about something is that whenever I'm in a position now, so I'm not in a lot of people who's listening to this position of the barrier of entry. So kind of disregard what I'm saying. I've got a lot of employees. I've got a lot of overhead. So I don't have the time, right, to sit and, spend a little bit amount of money. So
of course,
what a lot of people don't realize is, like, when I do something, whether it's my own site or something else, traffic is the #1 thing I go for. And before even the product, because one, I want to make sure I can get the traffic for a certain cost. And a lot of times that traffic can just go to a waiting list page. And it's so, like, people see what I'm doing and they don't get it. But once I explain it to them, I'm like, listen, the product really doesn't matter. If I can't get traffic at the right price and then convert that traffic into something that people want, this isn't going anywhere. I would rather lay people off than stop buying traffic. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you know, I think everything, the way I look at it is everything sort of winds up becoming an analytics or a math problem too, right? Because let's say I've known people who their whole business has been built off effectively or traffic arbitrage. I can buy traffic, for example, for 10 cents a click from Bing or Yahoo or whoever it is, and I can sell it at 15 cents a click over here, and, you know, to buyer A. And even though to most people they're like, oh, 5 cents, you know, that's not a huge margin, this and that. Well, if you multiply that by volume, especially when you're talking about, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of clicks a day or even a month, all of a sudden you have a real business. So to me, to go back to exactly what you said, I totally agree. Like the general attitude I have is, if you look at how traffic is priced, whether it's through radio, TV, online methods, you know, because even look, most radio and TV now sends consumers online or to a retail store. And all of that has a cost per acquisition associated with it. So it's usually pretty accurate to the value of the consumer. So to your point, if you're buying traffic for mortgage and you go, okay, I know mortgage traffic is $10, but you know, shit, I can't make it sell for more than $5. Well, that lets you know that somebody else has a buyer you don't have. That's why they're selling it for a higher price than you're able to get, or they've optimized things better. But either way, it lets you know there's still work to be done on your end.
Right. And I think we live in amazing times, and the book will be written someday where it will be very difficult to do affiliate marketing. I mean, because eventually, like you see it already, like with Facebook. I mean, Facebook, what I did 8 years ago when we would spend, you know, we'd spend, you know, up to 70, 90,000, you know, one day we crossed 100,000 a day on Facebook. You cannot do anything like that. I mean, that was in a dating vertical, but, you know, and like, even like I just promote articles on my blog and they'll pause my account and they'll say, what? And their reason is, it's ShoeMoney.com, ShoeMoney. And that flags something. And it's so restrictive now, but mostly because they just want big brands.
Well, I think it's even more than that. It's that it makes more financial sense for them to consolidate most of it themselves. I mean, you talked about Amazon making the affiliate program. Another great example, look at Uber. So Uber is actually, most people don't realize this, but Uber is basically a massive affiliate program when it comes to recruiting drivers. They've associated a cost per acquisition on each driver. They know how many they need to maintain in order to keep up with peak surges and basically traffic patterns. And then they put that algorithm in there and say, this is how many consumers I need to get. I need to pay this much on Facebook, this much on Google, this much on Amazon, and so on and so forth in order to acquire those consumers at that price.
Right. And again, if those of you are just joining us, I have Morgan from leadsmarket.com, which is a short-term loan, payday loan, if you will, affiliate network. It's the best in the industry. You should go sign up for him. Morgan's an awesome dude, and I'm honored to have him on the show today because his wealth and knowledge of the industry is amazing. And so with that, I mean, one thing you just talked about with Amazon is there's been a big thing for years about different states imposing taxes on affiliate programs. Do you guys run into any of that in certain states?
Sorry, could you say that again? I had cut out.
Yeah, Amazon has shut down affiliate programs in various states. Does that have any effect on your industry?
It's a little different because they have a physical product. So I understand why they did it in the states they did. They were making decisions based on tax liability as well as based on basically where the states deemed the transaction was taking place, you know, California, for example. So for us, because we don't have a physical product and because technically it's a technology matchmaking service, it's a little different in that element. So we aren't affected by it, but to answer your question, technically any physical provider of goods will be affected by that. And not only that, if you really look at it, it has interesting consequences, I think, moving forward. A lot of people shop online either for the tax benefits or for a plethora of reasons, but as you start to see states exercise the same rights they would have in retail, I think that will gradually start to go through all industries online. Eventually you'll see it in the firearms industry, you'll see it in the alcohol industry, and you'll see it, of course, through Amazon and really all traditional products.
Yeah, and I just so just for those out there, for us, anyone in the United States, any state in the United States can be an affiliate of Leeds Market.
That's true, absolutely.
Okay, so another thing we always like to talk about. So where are you guys located? Is it in Las Vegas?
No, we're in Los Angeles.
Ah, I knew that I was close to that.
Yeah, we just actually moved to a brand new office in Woodland Hills, so we'll have to have you out sometime soon.
Yeah, feel free to fly me out whenever. No, I was out there not too long ago, and yeah, it was interesting because it was a company that we were working with, but they had given me $100,000 cash, and so I'm sitting in the office of their CEO with $100,000 in my hands, and I took a picture with it, of course, and posted it because that's me, and I'm super humble. And I was like, how the hell am I going to get this money home? Because all my banks are local little banks, like in Nebraska. I don't put money with national chains because that's just a personal thing with me. I don't feel safe with that. And so I was like, well, we made it work, but that was my last trip to LA. That would have been like 3 months ago, something like that.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah. Yeah,
so I make it out there quite a bit, and San Diego too, which I like. I actually like renting a car and driving around to San Diego. So I usually
that's a good option.
Yeah, and then I can just drive up to LA, and avoid traffic. Like it's a little bit different here in Nebraska with traffic.
Traffic's a nightmare here, yeah, in general. I always joke that if LA didn't have traffic, it would be perfect.
So how big is your office there?
Our office here is substantial. We have we're about half of a whole office building floor.
Wow, and how many employees you have there?
We have between 30 and 35 in-house here.
And what's like overall, like we used to do this behind the scenes thing, which we actually did with our mutual friend, a very good mutual friend. We did that at the place he was working at that time. And I'd love to say his name, but he's such a private person that I never know if it's okay.
Of course, I understand that as well.
Yeah. So, and they had a very interesting culture there. And so how would you kind of describe the culture at Leeds Market?
I'd say the way that, first of all, I actually love the culture here at Leeds Market. One of the jokes is that I'm not a micromanager. I'm one who believes that the numbers speak for yourselves. And because of that, everyone works very diligently and works, solid hours continuously, but it doesn't mean we don't have fun. Look, we have a ping pong table and a video game console in the office for the programmers. Lunch is delivered daily, and really we actually try to focus on keeping sort of that tech startup mentality in mind. The way I've looked at it is it's always important to basically stay hungry and to continue always looking to improve. I always have the motto that every day when I come in, my attitude is, of course, you want to focus on the big things too, but I say, what can you do to improve the business 1% today? Because that is not as difficult sometimes as improving things 50%, 40%, with large ideas. And you can make incremental changes that have huge effects. Over the course of a year, you're going to more than triple your business if you're able to do that. And that's sort of the way we always look at it, which is we always want to hit home runs, but we can never not focus on being marginally better each and every day. And more importantly, having the metrics to prove that. It's one thing to say it, but it's another to say, okay, and I have the data showing this. So that we try to merge, the hungry startup while also making sure that we actually look at it from sort of a large data and analytical perspective.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think, the whole startup kind of mentality with the group of, programmers and stuff that are coming out now is what I've found, and I'm in Nebraska, you're way more into although they're trying to be more focused on VC stuff and around here, but a lot of them are dipshit farmers. And I say that I'm a little bit scorned because I was unable to raise money around here, and I didn't need to raise it, but I've never done it before. And I knew this company I was doing it for was going to do well. And it did end up selling for $12 million last November. So all of you people in Nebraska can bite it that didn't buy in. So I'm a little bit scorned by that, but at the same time, I went off on a little tangent.
I could tell there wasn't any bitterness at all.
Yeah. Well, actually, like what I'm doing now is I'm setting up a fund so that I can not only invest, because I'm just gonna be honest, like there's nobody here that's good like me. There's probably, and again, this is my humble side talking, there's probably less than 10 people that are as good as me at what I do. And what
in Nebraska or in general?
I'm saying in general, like, I'm just saying, like, if you talk about from having an idea to rapidly grow a company, like what I did with my company, Auction Ads Advertising Network, in 4 months from the day we started at March 4th and was when we opened. And by July 27th, I sold that company for many millions. Nice. 4 months later. And we had 25,000 active publishers, and I was floating about 3 million that last month. So we had 3 million in revenue. So there's been several other I could go on forever about from startup. So for me, like, it makes the most sense because if I have a company more than a year, I'm bored. And I like to get the company off the ground, running, a lot of revenue, massive growth, and then I like to go on to the next thing. And so
you're a build and sell kind of model.
Yeah, build and sell, or build and put the right person in charge, and move on to my next thing. Because where I've learned I've failed is when I tried to build this giant team around me and keep things going when I'm not really into it, and it just kind of echoes throughout. So with that, like for me to go into some of these startups here in Lincoln and be like, okay, what's this, like buying traffic? Like, it's so funny. I try to give these guys this plane analogy of like, look, you've got this plane on a runway and this thing is going to either crash or it's going to take off. So you can either wait 10 months and keep focusing on this product that you don't think is ever good enough to launch, or you can start buying traffic today and just collect emails and see if anyone's actually interested in how you're presenting this product or the value proposition to the customer.
So I totally believe it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is that, the trial by fire attitude. And that's why I was saying, it's important in some cases to pay for your traffic, especially when you begin, because you find out very quickly what the interest is, and more importantly, you find out whether or not it's sustainable. So I think, on to your point exactly, if you're not doing that, it's tough to say, can I really scale this or not?
Right, and a lot of people who are the best affiliate marketers I know don't have a college degree. They don't have an MBA. They, like for me, I'm not qualified to run a company. Like my thing is startup, and it comes from exactly failing 95% of the time. That's my cost of education.
I couldn't agree more with you. I actually will say this, personally, I've hired and fired multiple people from Harvard Business School, and some of which have been good, others of which have had good grades, and I go, how the hell did you get into Harvard? For me personally, my personal opinion is that it's the work you do that separates you. I remember when I had come out and really started working, I was working really from about 7 a.m., leaving the office, going to the gym around 6, coming back and working till like 11 o'clock, and every night for years. Just years and years, I would basically do nothing but work. And it was brutal, But that's how I spent my early 20s, and I mean, quite frankly, to a degree now. But by doing that, it allowed me to learn everything I needed to learn those mistakes in order to truly be successful. And I think if anyone's looking for, whether it's in affiliate marketing or anything else, if anyone's looking for a quick fix, I don't necessarily think that's it. Quick buck, it's not necessarily affiliate marketing, because you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to do the research. It's more about, quite frankly, whoever is willing to put in the most work is usually going to be the most successful.
Yep. And I think it's also like what are you passionate about kind of
100%.
thing? And like for me, like every time I found a vertical or build a website or whatever, the making money part was a side effect. Like I found like just being an affiliate and doing all that, stuff, even though money was involved, it wasn't my primary. It was just doing really cool stuff. I've got a thing going right now with our ShoeMoney network, which is going to be renamed to something shortly. And it's like we're getting almost 1,000 users a day in the United States alone. And I'm not making money with it, but it's amazing to me that I can affect that many people's lives every day. Like that many people come in every day. And the making money part of it will be, like I said, it'll be a side effect somewhere down the road. And it's just like, I love to, rapidly grow that. We should have over 10 million unique visitors this month. So it's just, that's my thing. And I started that a year ago, and I'm still really, really, really into it. This was actually my retirement project, but it got out of hand. So now I'm back to, I've got contractors and other stuff like that. Now you said something interesting about the startup mentality that I did want to touch on. And it refers to a lot of the programmers. And the last 2 programmers I've hired, a really interesting thing was when going through the interview process, I asked them, I always pin people down with this question. And it's a weird question, but I'm always like, how much do you need to make? And I just look them straight in the eye and say, how much do you need to make? And they're always like, well, they both said the same thing. I just want to work on cool shit. And honestly, like they came in at a very low salary, and the last 2 of them doubled their salary within a year and a half. And it was just, like that, those are the people that, and I've seen these programmers that bitch about things going overseas. And I'm like, look, if I get a positive return on what I'm paying you, I have an unlimited budget.
Yeah, for sure.
When I sold that auction ads company, I gave one of my programmer employees $2 million. Like, wired him $2 million.
That's, I think that's a great way to show appreciation for those who start things with you. And I love seeing that. And, one other thing that I was going to say is on that note is you're totally right. Look, I think there are people who, it's funny because generally when people really start to work hard and become successful, outside forces only see sort of that iceberg statement. They only see the success at top. They don't see basically all the times you've been screwed down below and how long it took you and how much work it took you to get there. But when you actually break it down, you say, I enjoy business. I enjoy this element of business. Like you said, I enjoy helping these people, making an impact on these lives, and doing it through a way that, yes, also happens to be profitable. But if you don't enjoy that hustle, if you don't enjoy doing that work, it's never going to be something that you're going to be able to put in the time you need to put in.
Right. And I think one of the things that's interesting about the space that Leads Market is in is that the market is so huge. I look at the ringtone industry when I was doing that, and this would have been in 2003 when I started this. The amount of people that I could market to was so small. And even today, in a lot of verticals, you have such a small portion of people. Whereas, in the short-term loan industry and other stuff like that, which this is going to lead to another question, but there's such a huge huge demographic and market, and the demographic is fairly straightforward, and the market is huge. And do you guys cater to other countries as well?
We have tons of affiliates who are in Thailand. We have affiliates in Russia. We have affiliates in the UK. Generally, we do not discriminate against affiliates of other countries. There are a few countries that we do not work with just simply because of issues with fraud or anything in the past. But that's only based on experience. We make sure we try to be open to anyone and everyone. And quite frankly, because we vet our affiliates thoroughly before they come through. I mean, any affiliate has to go through a plethora of checks to make sure they're legitimate. That's part of why we allow it to be open.
Right. And I think everyone understands. I mean, like the basics of you've got to be in, a top tier country to be an affiliate, and you're going to run into that everywhere. And, I always say to people, like, if you need rep, you can pretty much start about anywhere. And as long as you can, get on the phone and talk with people, that's one of the bigger ones. I mean, when I first started getting affiliates, unless they came directly from someone I knew, I was like, here's my cell phone, call me. Yeah. And, it didn't take long to figure out if this people were, but it's like you said, the fraud. I mean, they could, we're dealing with a company right now called On It, and I told, because they just started the affiliate program and they know nothing about the world, and they're going up against weight loss supplements and free plus shipping stuff and all this stuff. And I said, listen, the guys that are going to drive you a ton of volume are going to market your product in a way that you might not like. And
but I mean, that's sort of what I think is changing lately. And what I mean by that is that, now you're seeing, look at what happened to Capital One. They were fined, hundreds of millions of dollars based on something an affiliate did. Now it's becoming to a point where you're expected to be held liable and accountable for your affiliates and your affiliate partners. And I think that's one of the biggest changes we're seeing in the space. And a lot of this is also, I personally believe that a lot of this is also due to the fact that the law took a little while to catch up, right? So what I mean by that is that, our government in general was not designed by our founding fathers to be able to move quickly. That's a well-known fact. And what we see now is that the law on the internet, for example, is still catching up to what we're experiencing now. So even though affiliate marketing and basically the products around that have been marketed by affiliates, whether it's anything financial, most people don't realize pretty much anything they do right now is usually marketed through an affiliate. If you go online, that's the case. But now we're starting to see the regulators and the lawmakers catch up and hold the affiliates and their intermediaries accountable. So I think that moving forward, you won't be able to say that.
And this is something I had down earlier to ask you, and is with, you had mentioned Bing and buying traffic and that in the vertical you guys are in the short-term loan space and stuff like that. Where is a place where people can buy traffic?
So, Google obviously announced they'll be ending the short-term loan vertical as of July 14th. So that's one that is not really as available as before, at least on the short-term loan side. Our other products, auto, personal, SMB, that's separate. But the other side is certainly Bing, Yahoo. We've had a lot of success in non-traditional media markets. And then the other, and what I mean by that is, for example, radio and TV, those are great markets as well. And on top of that, you could go through SEO, you could go through pay-per-view, you can go through display networks. There's an enormous amount of opportunities still available to purchase traffic out there. And quite frankly, even when the Google rules go into effect, really what they don't realize is that these consumers that they're trying to assist and facilitate to other products, those products won't be able to fund these consumers. They won't be able to fund 90% of them. And when that happens, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. Eventually, Google will lose first search on that. It won't be immediate, but it'll happen within 3 to 6 months, at least for those products, just because the consumer won't find anything that's useful to them.
Yeah, and that's really an interesting thing you bring up, because I've had 2 different experiences with that in particular. I mean, that just not directly with me, but in it should have been like 5 or 6 years ago, BMW Germany was caught doing what we call in a link network, which would, you know, artificially inflate their SEO rankings, which I've got my own SEO as a house of cards, like I said, but they yanked BMW Germany out of Google, and that lasted for 2 days, and everyone you know, like came out and said, oh, that's bull crap, you put them right back in when they did this. And I made a video about it, like, look, do you realize how incompetent this makes Google look when you're in Germany looking for BMW Germany and it doesn't show up? Like, do you realize how incompetent that is? And I think that's why you've seen them go in and out a lot of verticals. John Chow is a friend of mine, blogger. He's I give him a lot of crap. He did some sketchy stuff with getting links as well, and they yanked him out. And it wasn't until like I actually made a post about that, about how incompetent does it look like, because people had made lookalike sites with his name. And it's like all these people are looking for him, but Google is making it a bad experience for them because they're only finding people impersonating him. And so it was interesting because like a week later he got back in, but that's just because my blog has so much pull. Again, I'm a pretty humble guy.
Well, you know, it's, don't get me wrong, I think Google winds up being in a tough position because, you know, quite frankly, they have to walk 3 lines. They have to walk the line of trying to avoid being hit with a monopoly suit from the U.S. government, which obviously makes them susceptible to, you know, being more agreeable to suggestions that might be made on products that they don't view favorably. Number 2, though, you know, they also, so I'm sure you know, but Google is trying to make sure that they're not regulated as a utility company, because effectively, and it's actually a huge issue which not too many people are aware of, but the reason it's important is because let's say they start taking stances on certain items. Well, because of the anti-monopoly issues, because of specifically the fact that they could be construed as sort of favoring either their own products, like they were sued for in Europe, or potentially someone else's product, and the fact that they could quite frankly make or break a company just based on their volume, it makes it tough for them to continue making the argument that they should basically be self-regulating, and that goes back to, you know, the utility argument, and that's one where if they're eventually restricted and they're eventually told, hey, because of your power and your abilities, you have to operate in a way that's, you know, truly ambiguous to all people, that puts them in a tough position. And of course, they want to treat they have the do no evil motto, so they're trying to hold firm to that. I mean, quite frankly, I don't envy the position they're in, because they're fighting 18 different battles at any given time. But of course, they have the lobbyists and lawyers to do so. It just doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, a lot of times in verticals that are interesting, you'll see them take a stance and yank them out, and then they quickly realize, or I should say the people in the AdWords side of things quickly realize that, okay, look, people are going there, and instead of finding our ads, they're finding all these affiliates that are they're just thin affiliate sites going to exactly the same place where we don't allow people to advertise. Mm-hmm. So let's rethink this a little bit. Yeah. And a lot of times we've seen that in various mobile industries, and on Google, and they've changed their tune a lot. And one thing you mentioned with Bing, that's a really good tip for a lot of people out there, is I think Bing, with the resurgence of the Microsoft Windows operating system coming back and being more integrated with that, with Apple. A lot of people don't know this. Bing is now the default search engine in Apple products and stuff, and that's just going to be bigger. And they're really raining on Google's parade. That Google had those big big contracts with Mozilla and with these other things that they were paying billions of dollars a year to. Now Microsoft's taken that over, and so their market is now, or I should say their inventory is now huge, and it's a great time to jump in there. I can't believe some of the pricing on clicks of stuff that would cost us 5 to 10 times as much on Google. So it's a big tip for those out there doing pay-per-click or wanting to get into pay-per-click. Okay, Morgan, we're kind of wrapping up here.
I appreciate it. I think we're running out of time,
Yeah, so those of us who join us halfway through, just watch the replay. Those of us listening to the replay, thanks so much for listening. Tweet at me, Facebook me, whatever. If you want more information on Leads Market, you can go to leadsmarket.com. If you are in the affiliate space of the Payday loan vertical or similar verticals, and you want to grow your revenue, do stuff like that, you should definitely get in contact with them. Great network, great people, great atmosphere. You can go to their LA office and play ping pong.
There you go. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm always available for any affiliate and any advertiser, any shape or size, or anyone who even just wants to learn more. We do installment loans, we do short-term loans, we do personal loans, auto title loans, and small business loans. Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. I feel like we need to do this again sometime in the future.
I'd love to.
There's definitely I've got a whole sheet of things as we were going to ask you about and stuff like that. So definitely thanks so much for coming on. You guys listening, we'll be back again next week and have another great guest for you. And thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again, Morgan.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
You too. Bye.